Most high-income earners are focused on the wrong risks: burnout, disability, declining reimbursement. Those are real. But here's another one that's more immediate, and most people aren't thinking about it. AI doesn't need to replace you to disrupt your life. It just needs to reduce your income or take away your control. And if most of your financial life depends on that one income stream, that introduces a level of risk that most people haven't fully thought through. So in this video, I want to walk you through how I think about that risk and how I think about protecting my income in an AI-driven world. Now, before we even talk about AI, I want to zoom out for a second, because if you're a high-income professional, you've probably heard the term golden handcuffs. You make great money. You built a successful career. The problem? You're highly dependent on that income. Your lifestyle depends on it. Your family depends on it. Your future plans depend on it. And that's the trade-off. On paper, everything looks great, but underneath that, there's less flexibility than it seems, because your income is high, but it's also concentrated. It's coming from one primary source. And even without AI, there's already a lot of uncertainty around how reliable that income really is. If you're a doctor, you're dealing with declining reimbursement or burnout or both. If you're in another high-income field, maybe it's changing compensation structures or increasing pressure or less control of your time. And when your financial life is built around one primary income stream, those changes can be disruptive. They create stress, not necessarily all at once, but over time, they start to add up. Now layer AI on top of that. It introduces another variable, another source of pressure on something that already isn't as stable as it looks. So for me, AI didn't create the problem. It just made me pay more attention to it. And it forced me to ask a different question. If my primary income becomes less reliable over time, what's my backup plan? And for me, this isn't a new idea. My wife and I started thinking about this years ago, long before AI was part of the conversation. At the time, it had nothing to do with technology. It was about something much simpler. We realized that our entire financial life was dependent on our jobs. We didn't have a lot of control. If we wanted more income, we had to work more. If we wanted more time, we had to earn less. So we started asking a different question. What would it look like to build income that wasn't tied to our time? Income that didn't depend on a schedule or a system we didn't control. And that's what led us to real estate. Over time, we built enough income from our investments to cover our living expenses. By 2017, we were financially free. That changed how we thought about everything. So when I look at AI today, I don't see it as something that created this risk. I see it as something that's exposing it, because the same issues still exist. If your financial life depends on one primary source of income, you're vulnerable to changes in that income. And AI is just one more factor that can accelerate those changes. It's not the cause, but it adds pressure. So the question isn't, is AI going to replace my job? The better question is, do I have income outside of my job that gives me flexibility and control if things change? That question changed everything for us. And it's the same question that makes real estate worth paying close attention to right now. So why real estate? There are a lot of ways to invest: stocks, bonds, crypto, startups. But for me, real estate solved a very specific problem. It gave us the ability to generate meaningful income outside of our jobs. Not just a little extra, but enough to actually make a difference. First, it's not tied to your time. When you own income-producing properties, you're not trading hours for dollars. You're owning an asset that produces cash flow. And if you do it right, that cash flow can become substantial over time. Second, it's tied to a basic human need. People always need a place to live. That doesn't change with technology or economic cycles. And that's what makes real estate fundamentally different from a lot of other investments. Third, it can create more predictable income. If you focus on cash flowing properties, you can build income that's more stable and more consistent. It's not perfect, but it's far less fragile than relying on a single job. Fourth, the tax advantages are significant. Real estate isn't just about making money. It's about keeping more of what you make. With strategies like depreciation, you can reduce your tax burden. And for high-income earners, that can make a meaningful difference. And finally, and this is the most important one, real estate creates optionality. It doesn't force you to quit your job. It gives you the ability to choose. You can come back, you can change roles, you can take a break. Or if you want, you can walk away completely. That's what financial freedom really means. It's not about escaping work, it's about removing the pressure. Here's how it played out for us. We were both physicians and we were doing well, but we could see what was happening in the system. There was increasing pressure, less control over how we practice, and real questions about how sustainable that path was long term. So we asked a simple question: what happens if we don't want to do this forever? And more importantly, what would give us that choice? So we started investing, not to get rich quick, but to build income outside of our jobs. Over time, that started to grow. We built a portfolio of over 185 doors, plus another 2,400 units as general partners in real estate syndication. That income gave us something we didn't have before: options. We were able to cut back, spend more time with our family, and start designing our lives on our terms. Not just more money, more control over how we live and work. Now let's bring this back to AI, because this is where it becomes urgent. As AI creates more uncertainty around jobs and income, people are going to start asking a different question. Not how do I make more money, but how do I protect the income I already have? And when that shift happens, behavior starts to change. People start looking for income that feels more stable, more predictable, and more within their control. They start moving towards things like cash flow, real assets, and investments they can understand, which is exactly what real estate provides. But here's the key. That shift doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually, and then suddenly, everyone is paying attention at the same time. And by that point, it's already more competitive, more crowded, and harder to find great opportunities. That's the pattern. The opportunity is almost always best before the majority sees it. You don't need to wait until your job is at risk to start building your backup plan, because the goal isn't to predict the future perfectly. The goal is to be prepared for it. Real estate isn't the only path, but it's one of the most proven ways to create income, reduce taxes, and give yourself more control and more options over time. And as that landscape continues to shift, that optionality becomes more valuable, not less. If you want to learn how to get started the right way, I'll link a video in the description below where I break down exactly how I would approach investing today. And if you're at the point where you're thinking more seriously about this and you want help building a strategy that fits your situation, we offer free strategy calls with our team. That's a chance to step back, look at your current income, your goals, and your timeline, and figure out what the right next step looks like for you. You can find a link to book a call below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.